intense but not tense. It's really tricky when you're going and you point out all the solutions and also the problems the goalie have. That you have to be really focused and also not tense. You have to stay loose. Your body needs to be ready to react, but also in a position to react to a lot of things. So
Right.
it's really hard. It's really
So
really hard.
that was Cristobal Huet, former NHL goaltender and Stanley Cup champion, and you're listening to the Up My Hockey podcast with Jason Podolin.
Just watch me now.
Welcome to Up My Hockey with Jason Podolin, where we deconstruct the NHL journey, discuss what it takes to make it, and have a few laughs along the way. I'm your host, Jason Podolin, a 31st overall draft pick who played 41 NHL games, but thought he was destined for 1,000. Learn from my story and those of my guests. This is a hockey podcast about reaching your potential. Hello and welcome back to the Up My Hockey podcast with Jason Podolin. I am Jason Podolin, your host for episode number 53. Can't believe we're at 53 already, and we are going back to the men in the crease, our goalies, the goalie union as Kevin Weeks would call it, to speak with Cristobal Huet, or as I would call him and his teammates in Mannheim, Disco. So Cristobal joined our team in Mannheim, I believe in the 2004-2005 lockout year, and he was one of many NHL players who was looking for work during the lockout. And he ended up coming with us. He joined Jochen Hecht, among others, to play in the DEL that year, and Disco was an absolute blessing to come to the team. Not only did he play outstanding, he was a tandem with Steve Passmore, who's a past guest and a friend of mine on the show as well, but those two got along great. They were just the perfect complement to the guys in the room, and not only did they play well together, but Disco, I believe, took his game to another level. We get into that a little bit today, but he was unbeatable at times. And I'm not talking like for minutes at a time. I'm talking for like weeks at a time, where he was just on it in practice, and he was competitive, and it was the same thing in games. And we really did ride him in the playoffs too. He did an unbelievable job for us, and he left Mannheim the following season to play with the Canadiens, where he had probably two of his best years as a professional, where he led the league in save percentage one year. He was in the top 5 in goals against. Ended up taking over the number 1 spot there in Montreal from Jose Theodore, a past Vezina Trophy winner and Hart Trophy winner. So that's not anything that's easy to do. But yeah, we talk about his time. He came up out of France, one of the second ever French-born player at the time to play in the National League, and the first goaltender to ever play from France. He ended up coming over and being drafted by the Kings and got his start with the Los Angeles Kings. Ended up getting traded to the Canadiens. From there, went to Washington and was part of their epic playoff run. They had to do something remarkable. I can't remember exactly what the record was, but they ended up winning, I think, 10 games in a row at the end of the season to make the playoffs, and Cristobal was their number 1, got traded from Montreal, took over for Olaf Kolzig, and I think he went 10-2 down the stretch, had a 1.61 goals against average and almost a .950 save percentage, and got them into the playoffs and took Philadelphia all the way to Game 7 in the first round and couldn't quite get through there. But to say nothing else than Cristobal was at the top of his game at this point, and luck and as fate would have it, sometimes you need both, that he was one of 2 goalies that year to be an unrestricted free agent. And the market always needs goalies, so it wasn't a competitive marketplace that year. And because he was playing so amazing, he signed a very lucrative 4-year, $22 million deal with the Chicago Blackhawks. where he went over and won a cup with them in 2010. Not the way he might have wanted to win the cup, as he ended up being replaced as a number one, as the starter by Antoniemi that year. But he was definitely a part of that run, and and a big part of that. Whether you're playing or not, you're in that dressing room, and you need to be on the side pulling the rope and not pulling against it. And we talk about his experience doing that. Cristobal had an amazing career, ended up playing well into his late 30s in the Swiss League, and is now a goalie coach. So it was really fun to reconnect with him. And what comes through in this is what you'll hear, I'm sure, loud and clear, is his humility. Real humble guy, doesn't want to talk about himself, doesn't want to celebrate what he did well, what he was great at. And I find that to be refreshing and a great reminder to what I remember of him back when I played with him in 2004. He was just really easy to get along with, a really great guy in the room, a good teammate. And coming from the NHL to the DEL the way he did, he didn't have to arrive the way he did. That was a choice. There was no arrogance about him. There was no, there was an approachability to him and an authenticity that allowed him to become a part of our team. He didn't feel above us. He felt with us. And I think because of that approach, he really grew his game that year and grew his confidence, was able to step in to some really awesome success at the NHL level. So I think you're going to enjoy this interview all the way from Lausanne, Switzerland. I give you Mr. Cristobal Huet. All right, here we are for episode 53 with my old friend and teammate, Mr. Cristobal Huet, coming at us live from Lausanne, Switzerland, if I said that right. So this is my second international guest, because we had Dave Nemirovsky on from Russia last year. So it's the second time we've gone overseas. But Cristobal, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Pods.
Yeah, it's so crazy, right? Like we haven't... Well, I mean, we kept in touch a little bit, like here and there on Facebook, but I mean, haven't really had a full conversation since our time in Mannheim there back in 2005. So it's awesome to see your face, and good to get together, because we have a lot to catch up on, man.
Exactly.
Yeah. I have a near and dear place in my heart for goaltenders for some reason, even like coming in as a junior for me in Spokane back in the WHL days. Like I was always the guy who would grab the glove and blocker, at the end of practice, and I'd want guys to come down on me and have the breakaways, and always seemed to make friends with the goalies along the way. So I don't know what it is about that position, but I've always kind of been enamored with it and attracted to it. And how was that with you? Was it something for you growing up in France there that just you knew you wanted to be a goalie? Was there ever a doubt for you that you were going to be a player? I mean, an out player?
Well, first, I think that's you want to win when you're friends with the goalies, because that's the last resort of your team, and it means a lot to the goalie to have friends, I think. But I grew up. My brother was playing as a forward, and I always want to be different than him, I think. And I was playing in the street like a Canadian guy, and in the street with the neighborhoods with the neighbors and stuff. So I was always the guy in the net, and then my team they needed a goalie, so I stepped in very easily, and I think it fitted me very well, because I was a little bit introvert, and I think that was the best move I could make, and thanks to my brother for shooting in my face in the street.
Yeah, you always got to thank the brothers for that. I got 3 little boys now, Disco. So when we were together, I was single, but now I'm married with 3 kids, and I see the little battles going on a daily basis with the brothers. So pretty good stuff. So when you're saying you're playing on the street, is that playing on the street in France somewhere? You guys are playing road hockey in France?
Yeah. Honestly, it was very special, because we were in the neighborhood, and some guys in the neighborhood never played hockey, and we started to have like 2, and then 3, and then 4. They started to play hockey, and then because of us, basically, and we're breaking the glass on the patio there with neighbors, but we have very nice neighbors, and yeah, like in Canada, like I said, we had the net, when a car was coming in, we moved the net and play again. Like really, he was very special, and I'm glad that actually we lived like this. We were very passionate about hockey. My brother and I. My brother is still involved in hockey. He's with youth hockey now, and he's very good at it. So yeah, we really enjoy hockey, and the passion is still here for both of us. Actually.
Can we talk about that just a little bit? Because I mean, obviously, I'm Canadian. I visited France and Paris and I've done that as a tourist, but never when I was there did I feel this was a hockey hotbed, right? So how did you get exposed to that, and at what age were you exposed to it?
I don't know. Like my dad, it happens with obviously my brother, because my brother started first, but he's 4 years older than me. And my dad started because we had the Olympics in '68 in Grenoble, in my hometown in France. And at that time, Russia played the Czechoslovakia at the time, and there was the big revolution between the Russians and Czechoslovakia. And that's why Jaromir Jagr has 68. And it was more than a game in our hometown. And then my dad fell in love with hockey. He never played, and just loved the game because he was so fast. And that game meant more than just a goal, or I don't know what the game was actually, but. So he took us to our pro team in Grenoble, and we had some pretty good hockey players back then, and some Canadian guys that really developed hockey in France. And it always started with the Canadian, because we didn't have the culture and everything, and our hometown team became a hotspot in France for hockey. Because we're in the Alps, and Chamonix, which is also an Olympic city. It starts like this always, Olympics, that you have the chance to see what's going on in the hockey world or in the sports world, and that's how it started. And then my brother started, and then everything rolls up like this.
So as a young kid growing up in France and falling in love with the sport, I mean, your father is a big influencer in that. Where do the big dreams go, or is it the Olympics then? As you growing up and you're playing on the street, like what trophy are you winning? In Canada, it's always Game 7, and you're winning the Stanley Cup as an 8-year-old, right? Like in the streets of France, there, what were you playing for? What was the big dream?
That's a good question, but that in France back then, you have to think what happened back then. We didn't have internet. So the exposure for us of the NHL wasn't big, was none actually. My first exposure when I went to the Pee-wee tournament in Quebec, that was just an eye opener, and the world changed for me because I went there. Now it's different. I have two sons also myself. They're both goalies, so and now they're students of the game. They watch like highlights in the morning with breakfast, and it's easier for them. It was different back then, and so my dream was to play for my hometown team. To be honest,
yeah,
and it was like that. Just I watched those guys every day or every Saturday, and that's the guys I was looking up to. And after your goals, change, and then you see what you can accomplish, and you try to make steps every day, and I think it was different back then, and then you try to advance, and you saw me in 2005. I was not the guy. I was not going to tell you, I'm going to try to be a number one and be successful in the NHL. I was just trying to survive back then,
Right. Yeah. Well, the team in Grenoble, though, that was like the top. That was a pro team in France, and then the top league in France, correct? So that was
pro team, yeah.
Yeah. So those were high aspirations, anyways, and that was the highest that you knew of at the time. But I like that you brought up that Pee Wee tournament, because I would love to talk about that. I never had a chance to play in it. I have spoken to a few guys on this podcast about going there, and there's obviously a ton of history there. It's been going on forever. Huge names have gone through that tournament, and it's so well attended for those listening that haven't heard of it. Like they sell out the Colisée, right, for like 12 and 13-year-old kids, which is super cool. So how did your team end up getting the invite or getting accepted, and how did your experience go there?
It was 97, or I went twice, and we had like a mini selection in the Alps. It was called Alps Selects or something like that, like French Alps, or I don't know what was the name. And we ended up being in double A or triple A, like international, like high end. Back then, they didn't really have like levels of tournaments, and we ended up being in the big tournaments, and we got spanked pretty bad the first year. But the second year we won, actually, for a Finnish team. But I mean, for us it was more like the whole experience, like you name it. Like we went to see a Montreal Canadian practice with Patrick Roy, and we were all like eyes open, and living with the families in Quebec, and going motor ski. The whole experience. Hockey was just fun, and really it wasn't that much about winning for us, obviously, and it was just an eye opener. Actually, I remember one game we went to see a game in Colisée, Nordics against Pittsburgh, and my family was late after the game, and we ended up waiting outside the gate, and Mario Lemieux just walked outside the door like a 12-year-old. Like it was just outstanding, just perfect. It would never happen now. Yeah. There's like exit, you never see the players. And no, it was great, like the whole experience. And like I said, then you start looking a little bit what's going on, who's the best, and then everything opens up.
Right. Well, that's what I was going to say. So not only from a cultural perspective, right? I mean, obviously going to Canada and seeing the world and being exposed to all that, being exposed to how big hockey is, right, elsewhere, it would probably be a big eye opener. But also, I think from a leveling up comparison process, right? Like who is out there? How do I fit into this thing? Like how good are these players? And kind of do I have a chance? Was there a little bit of that going on for you? Like how do I fit into this whole puzzle?
It's crazy, but not that much. Like not for myself. I just thought that there were some people that were great at it, and I was just enjoying it, just playing it. But I never measure myself, even in a Pee Wee tournament. Well, probably saying, "Wow, that goalie is really good," or "That guy is really good." But yeah. I was just trying to do my things, and the process was a little bit different. Like we weren't measuring each other that much as now. I think it's getting harder to go to the pro level, and it's really tough for the young kids now, I think.
Gotcha. How is that being a dad of goalies? You said it is different for them. Like they get to watch other goalies. They don't have to maybe listen to dad like it would have been 30 years ago. You would have been the only exposure to them, so they get to see other goalies now. But do they? Yeah, I mean that's always tricky, right? Especially you had your own personal success. Sometimes, no matter who you are as a dad, your kids don't want to listen to you too much. How does that go, and how do you manage that? Being where you've gotten to, and now dealing with kids trying to maybe get somewhere.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. But first, when your kids are in that, you have a lot of respect for your mom and dad, because the stress they went through, and that's the first things. But no, I coach a little bit my kids when they were young. We were living in a small village, and it was great. And I coach other goalies, but I never wanted them to be goalies. Honestly, I want them to do whatever they want, for sure. But then I said, well, we'll see when you turn 7, and then day of the birthday say, okay, can I go now? And then like it's pretty obvious that they want to do that. And after that, early, I think they were listening to me, and they wanted to have some input. And then I think there is a point where you have to let go and let others do it, and then you have like an informal chat with them after games if they want to. But that's where I'm at now.
Right.
I'm coaching the pro team, so they know that's my job also. But I'm waiting for them to really ask for questions and want answers.
How old are they now?
16 and 12.
Oh, okay. So yeah, so they're in it. Like that's the ages where they're in it, right? If they want to continue on. So yeah, you mentioned that. So now you're in the goalie coach position, right? And as a father, kind of a goalie coach there as well. I have a goalie too, by the way, Disco. So my middle boy's a goalie, and so it's been fun for me as because I coach as well, right? So like having that goalie. Being a goalie parent and a goalie a coach, like the practice for me has become a whole new thing, right? Like, because a lot of times I think coaches, and I was one of them, like where you design the drill and you do everything, and then it's like and go in and shoot, and go in and shoot. Like, but that whole and go in and shoot is such a new thing when I'm thinking about the angles for the goalie, what the goalie has to do from their technical status and everything. So it's definitely made me a better coach, having a goalie in the mix, but. I find it interesting balancing. What's that?
More stress coach, probably. Too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 100%. But the thing I find interesting is like the position is so technical for sure, right? And it's a whole different sport almost inside of hockey. But the mental part of that position is really challenging. I think more so than any other position. When in your job now, how much time are you spending on the physical stuff and how much time are you spending on the mental stuff?
Well, the mental stuff, I think it's the same as if you want for a goalie or a player, anything you do professional or you want to do well is the preparation. So let's say that you do the work and you try to prepare yourself, then you go into the games and your mental is going to be right away up to the roof, So for me, it's not as mental as it seems. Of course, you're the last, But if you trust yourself and you trust what you're doing, then things are a little bit easier in your head, and then you can just let go and just play. And that's my approach. I try to really do the preparation before and then play the game. But
right.
Easy to say, obviously. It's really easy to say, not easy to do. But you have to put things in perspective. And me, Pat. I was in as a goalie, and I tried to stay very loose. And I'm competitive and everything, but you have to play the game, enjoy the game, and if you look at Marc-Andre Fleury, of course, he's a different beast. He's a great athlete and everything, but I love him because he really enjoys what he's doing, and that's a key also.
Yeah, great point. Enjoying that, enjoying the preparation too, right? I mean, that was something that I wanted to get into. I don't know if now's the time because our experience in Mannheim, but you definitely enjoyed practice. It was one of the things that I definitely remember about you and about playing with you is how much you turned that intensity up for me personally, and maybe for other players too, because of how committed you were to not having that puck go in the net, and how much fun you had keeping it out of the net too. So like I totally remember that, and I remember going like long amounts of time without being able to score on you, which absolutely pissed me off. But it was fun. It was still fun. Like was that just always natural for you? Because sometimes players aren't like that. They don't enjoy practice, right? They don't enjoy that process. It seemed to me like you always enjoyed being out there.
Well, except maybe my last year, but the rest of my career, yeah, I did enjoy playing a lot. Not always, of course, and there's some 300 drills and like whatever you name it that are boring, but most of the times, and when there was a game like we did in Mannheim and games like that where we had a fun year and good guys around and enjoying ourselves, and then it's really fun to be out there with those guys and challenge ourselves. Being a goalie is basically this. Not letting you score as much as possible.
True though, right? But it means, yeah, but it's not all the same, right? I mean, and I've played on a lot of teams, and you have too, right?
It's not the same.
There are guys at that highest level that it doesn't seem like the practice is really that big of a deal, or letting the puck in that scenario. But for you, it always seemed like that was definitely something you did not want to have happen.
But something is changing also, Pods, that is that nowadays every for the pros, and if you go to juniors and probably high school now in North America, there's a goalie coach. And that goalie coach is big impact on that preparation that I was talking to before. Doing the repetition on certain drills, certain situations that you can't repeat in the games, and then just focus on the shot. And now that's what I mean. Like everybody went. Hockey players went from where we were in late 90s to now. It's really high hockey now. You see in the NHL, it's really high standards now, and it's really tough to break in the league now because those guys are so good. But and goalies is the same. There is goalie coach now at a young age, and they do the repetition and the drills and the good habits that takes them to the preparation before a shot, and then they just focus on the shots, and the mental aspects then drop a little bit from before. I want to say
right.
Before it was just like talent and mental toughness maybe, and the skills and the technique wasn't as big as now, and now we put a lot of reps into every situations.
What do you think the differentiator is now? Because I was actually just having this conversation the other day with a former goalie. I don't know if you remember his name, Sean Mattil. Anyways, he was with the Flames organization for a while and came out of university hockey in the States. And we were talking about how technical it is, right? And how everyone is doing like the reps, how you just said, right? I mean, the skating is so important, and being in position and being square to the puck and all these great habits. But then I was talking about, but then once the game starts, it gets a little bit chaotic, right? And not everything is like practice. And I think there's room for that athlete still, right? Like the Marc-Andre Fleury, the athletic goalie who now in the game situation just has to respond. So you have that good foundation, but you still need to be an athlete and have a good head on your shoulders too, I guess. Like what do you see in your position as far as being the differentiators now with these young goalies coming up?
Well, we don't even know. It's tough to have a line and say, "Oh, well, we have to do this to be to develop a player into the NHL." But for sure, I think you have to have a strong base, and that strong base I was talking before about the good habits and the good techniques. But the good technique doesn't take you anywhere. It's the same as stick handling and talented hockey players. It doesn't take you to the NHL. It's exactly the same thing. You have to have that part of the reading the game and reading the shots and being a little bit student and loving the game to enjoy making a save. That part of competitiveness that is a big part of pro goalies.
When you say being a student, I like that actually. What do you mean by that? How do you be a student of the game as a goalie? Could you describe that a little bit more?
Well, student can be either watching other goalies, which I think is a great part of learning, because the role models are just in front of us, and you can pick whoever you want. You can say, "Well, I like what that guy is doing," and for everybody it's different. Myself, I love, for example, Patrick Roy for sure for the structure, but I love Dominique Hasek. And Hasek was a great part of me being wild and sprawling around and making that dispersion safe. No, but for real, that's he was a big part of that. And for young kids, they can pick whoever they want to do that, But I recommend to have one of each, not a little bit of a crazy guy. Like Marc-Andre Fleury is a great guy for that. He will make desperation save, and is also structured. So, but what was the question again about?
Well, I was just, how you be a student, like as a goaltender, right? So yeah, you can be a student of other goaltenders, which is a great place to start. How can you be curious about with the shooter? You talked about reading the shot. What do you look for when it comes to that?
Yeah, that was my second point that I lost there. Is that the second point is also the student of the shooters, the plays, in what situation, is a little bit as the players would do. You have to learn to read the game, what the player is doing, where is the release, where is the puck, where are the hands, where is it on the blade, and stuff like that. But you can get stuck on those points too. You have to also take that as a warning, and then still being able to track the puck into your body or into your glove.
Yeah.
Go ahead. It's great to see the tendencies, and some goalies don't like to know too much, but I think it's great to see a little bit how the guy is shooting, if he's shooting quick, if he's shooting, if he's patient. Like there's tons of stuff that you can.
When it comes to the release, in that same conversation I had yesterday, I was talking about you because I said I was going to have an interview with you, and I mentioned the fact that you were a goalie, and obviously I played with a lot of goalies and a lot of good goalies, but you were a goalie that knew where I was shooting as I was shooting it, and I could tell that, and I couldn't change my release to like fool you. Mm-hmm. Was there guys that, obviously there was, I would assume, that you didn't have as great a read on, that you remember, like that you weren't quite as sure where their shot was going, and what made that shot a little bit more deceptive?
There was a lot of guys, I guess, but who was? Well, I think for goalies, Sidney Crosby's backhand, for example, or every backhand, but he has one of the best backhand. Is really tough to read because it's not the position of the hands, or it's really the movement and the last moment movement of your lower hands that probably directs the puck. So there is no much read on that. Mm-hmm. And I was pretty bad in backhands. I don't know. I think it's really hard to say. I've been scored a lot of goals. So.
Right. Well, I thought maybe a couple guys would stand out because sometimes there is just that player where you're just not quite as comfortable with when they're coming down. And again, I saw it firsthand that you. What's that?
My memory is really short, and the way I want to.
That's good. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Did you when it comes to the personality aspect, and you already mentioned it already, that you said you were a bit of an introvert and you felt that was beneficial to the position. Why do you think that is beneficial to the position?
Growing up, I think I was really shy, and being a goalie was a way of for me to belong first, really well with the guys, in the team, and then establish myself, but in a way where I was able to do my own stuff. And then I don't know, I think just my personality is like this. I think it was like that. It changed obviously with the course of the year. And me, I was not introvert in 2005 when I was there, but I've been a little bit like this, and it took time for me to get out of my shell a little bit, and that was a way. Hockey was a way for me to be the person I wanted to be.
Right. Oh, that's cool. Mm-hmm. Because it's you mentioned you're able to do what you kind of wanted to do, and that's one thing that I definitely noticed. Being a part of the sport. Well, I already mentioned it being a coach in practice. Like very rarely is the goalie like talked about as a part of everything else, right? Like, I mean, your pregame preparation is different. How you guys approach practice, what the expectations are. Everything is different for the two guys in the room out of 20, right? And a lot of times the coach would almost just leave you guys alone and do whatever it is that you wanted to do. That has changed. I think it's evolved with the game a little bit, but back when we were around, that was definitely the way it was. And for me, there was a little bit of an attraction to that too. Like, I liked that aspect of the goalie, so I could see how that was beneficial for you. Let's get into you hopping over. You won a championship in Lugano. Like, you ended up breaking out of the French league, right? You ended up winning a championship there in the Swiss league. Is that where the scouts, like, how do you remember being recognized and you actually thinking that, I might have a chance to play in the NHL?
Well, that's that was a long shot. Yeah, for sure. When I was 16, I think I was talented for France. Okay, let's put things in countries first, because talented for France means nothing when you think about the hockey world and Canada, with the numbers of players that there is in Canada or Sweden or Finland, everywhere. Yeah. And I was getting attraction from Swiss team, and because of the national team. Of course, I played in World Championship at a young age, and people started to look a little bit. But going to Switzerland was a big move for me, and having a goalie coach that I'm still in touch with is in North Bay now, Tom Edican, and he helped me a lot mentally at the time, and on the ice, everything. And it was the first time I had a goalie coach, age 22. Crazy. Wow. That's what I'm saying, is like a different time back then. Right. And I was very talented, but wild and all over the place. And it took me a little bit of time to get my game in a structured phase. And so for me, my dream wasn't to play in the NHL. I wanted to be good where I was, as best as I can be where I was, the best in the league where I played. And I did that in Switzerland. I did that for 2 years. And the scout came, and I was a late pick in 01 draft with LA picked me, and I had no clue. I was my goalie coach called me. He was in North Bay, and he called me and he said, "Hey, you've been picked by LA 7th round." Okay, good. Hey, thank you. I didn't know anything about this. That was another time, and LA called me, and I was invited for a rookie camp, and but I was already 25, so right. It was. I've never been ready at age 20 like a Canadian boy. There's not enough stress or competition before that for me at that time.
Right. Yeah. That's wild. So you got drafted as a 25-year-old after having a couple good seasons there, and you had your first goalie coach experience at 22. You said he helped you mentally. That's something that I'm really passionate about now, is the mental side of the game, whether it's from a player or whether it's from a goaltender. What do you remember being the lessons there from working with him on the mental side of it?
A lot. Not. I'm not saying that he took me apart or do meetings of mental, but it was just every day. I remember that on Sunday morning, he would, after a game, he would take me and the other goalie, Lars Weibel, at 8:00 Sunday morning to the rink, practice for an hour, and asking us, hey, what are the other goalies doing in the league now? So, you don't know what they're doing? No, we said, well, we don't know. They're sleeping. We're working here. And then he was keeping that attitude with us, that we have an edge on everybody else, which was probably false, but no. But I think he was really good with me mentally, and when I made the step over to the NHL, also he was preparing me mentally, and made me believe that I could do well there.
Right. Yeah. I love that though. Like, that's I know we're laughing about it, but like there's a realness to that when it comes to confidence. And you've touched on it earlier when it comes to preparation, right? When you build in habits and when you build in a standard for how you operate, right?
Yeah.
You show up feeling different because you actually believe you put in the work, and you deserve to feel confident, and you deserve to feel like you have an edge, right? So like, I like how he announced it too and acknowledged it. And that's one of the things I do now too, right? Like you are being different right now. The choices you're making are different than other kids and other people, other pros. And because of that, you're going to be a better player. I think that's pretty powerful.
No, for sure. I think it's great. And, when I think about those years and now when I coach my goalies, it's really challenging when you speak about the mental aspect, that it's really hard to do it every day. I think it's really challenging using always the good words and but at the end, you have also to trust the athletes, that they have to find solutions themselves, and that's another part that we we're not they're smart people too. I think they have the keys themselves. You have to give them a way that they can do it themselves, and they will also be even more proud when they do it themselves. Yeah. Sometimes you have to show them the way, but then they have to grab it themselves, and that's very interesting. But it's a big part of the game, and it's a wild part because we don't know how far can we go. It's really, there's always a limit, But
try and find it, right?
Being positive, of course, I think it's key, especially with goalies. If there is some goalie coach watching now, I think being positive with goalies is really key. Or if you don't know, just don't talk to your goalies. It's really let them be. It's really a very tough spot on the ice, and but yeah. Good luck with that quest.
Just going to take a short break from the episode here with Cristobal to remind you that if you are an athlete, or if you are a parent of an athlete or coach of athletes, and you want these athletes to become consciously competent, meaning to be aware of what it takes to be their best, that is what I do. I help teams, I help players, I help parents of those players support their athletes to become their personal best. And it is a process, and everyone has their own recipe. And that's the interesting part about celebrating greatness, is that it doesn't happen by accident. There is a process, there is a recipe, and each individual personality has a different way to get there. And the earlier we start thinking about this process and this recipe, the better. A lot of you have heard in the interviews with scouts and with some of these assistant general managers or director of player development that they receive players at 18, 19 years old that haven't really figured out how to do this on a professional level, that maybe they had the talent to get them there, but they don't really know what it takes to push forward, to be their best, to handle this adversity. And a lot of the stuff that they're learning or trying to teach them at this level is that on-the-job training of how to become a professional and how to become consciously competent. So the earlier we have these discussions, the better. The success I've been having with teams lately has been really profound. Really enjoy the work that I'm doing. So if you're interested about that, how to become your best, or how to allow your players to look at themselves on an individual level, to step into their own personal potential, which will allow the team to step into their personal potential on a collective level, by all means, check it out on www.upmyhockey.com. Would love to check out the services section there and see what I have to offer. So without further ado, let's get back to the interview with Cristobal Huet. Well, it's fun. I think it's fun, and I think you nailed it on the head too about, talking about empowering goalies, right? Like, it's one thing, I don't know what the right word is, like to hold somebody's hand, right? Like to help, but you want them to feel like they have the keys to themselves, right? That they are starting to put these pieces of the puzzle together, and that builds that self-belief and self-confidence that they can go and they can handle this, right? I think that's one of the best parts of being a coach. I love that aspect, is like allowing the athlete to be curious about themselves, Just recently I've talked about the recipe for greatness, and like your recipe for greatness is going to be different than mine, who's going to be different than Patrick Waz, right? But there is a recipe, and be curious about it, right? Like find out what that is, and helping athletes be curious about that is something that I find quite fun. And a lot of times athletes don't think about it that way though either, right? Like what does make me be my best? A lot of times that question doesn't really go like that.
And don't forget, there's different point of view. If you're talking to coaching you like young kids that is 10 or 15 or pro, it's totally different. You have to respect the approach of talking to a young kid or like a 15-year-old that is pretty good hockey player, but he's still a kid. You have to approach things differently depending on the age and the level they're playing, of course. It's not for everybody,
Yeah, exactly. Sure. How give me your memories of your first experience there coming overseas and being a part of an NHL organization and an NHL training camp. What was that? How was that for you?
I didn't plan on telling that story, but it regards somebody, and my first NHL camp, I was with Eric Healy. Yeah, yep. Eric starts with an H, and my name too. So we were doing the physical test together. That's my first experience, and all I can say is I felt pretty good about myself.
Oh, that's awesome! Heels was in shape. Oh my goodness, that's funny.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, no, he'd be the first one to laugh at himself too, and so Heels is probably listening because he does like the podcast. And his son, by the way, is a heck of a player, 6th overall in the draft there, and he has a chance to become a pro himself. But Eric Healy was a heck of a player, great hands, saw the game super well. We had Cristobal and I both played with him in Mannheim. But by all accounts, he wasn't the most in shape professional athlete out there. So Disco felt pretty good after getting off the bike. After he saw Heels.
A lot of goals, though.
Yeah, exactly. Scored a lot of goals for sure. So did you make? I'm trying to just look at the hockey DB here. Like I guess it looks like you didn't make the team out of camp, but maybe you got called up at some point. Like, so you had NHL games your first time over there, right?
My first year, so I did the camp. I was sent down, and then I played with Eric Healy, Steve Kelly was in there, and who else? Yeah, we had Mike Camilleri. We had a pretty good team in Manchester, and Felix Potvin got injured during the year, and then I got called up in February or January. I had a chance to play my first game.
Cool. Yeah. What is that memory like?
That was great. I mean, my first game was in Philly. I got into the game. We were down 3-0 maybe, and I remember my first save. I was like a screen through traffic, and it was like slow motion. I think I'm still dreaming about this. I had to make that save. And he touched like tip of my shoulder. And I thought to myself, wow, if it was going in, I was probably back to Manchester over like red flight into the game. But I didn't. And I got scored a few goals, but then they liked me, and I hang around and played my first game after that, and it went well, and and then it went the way like that.
What was a bigger adjustment for you, the NHL style of game or the AHL style of game, or just the whole cultural difference? I mean, coming over and being a part of the North American culture.
I don't know. Probably the shooting mentality and everything that small ice does compared to big ice. But I think it's kind of easier this way. I think going to the big ice is a little bit harder for goalies because there's more passing and more bullshit around and moving. So it's kind of easier. And for me, living in the States or living in Canada was great. I enjoy it. I enjoy every single moment I spend there. My uncle is actually living in California, so I went there. It's not like I didn't know anything about the United States, so it was no, it was great living there. Even
How was your
Manchester,
Was English? Were you speaking English at the time?
no, not very well. No, just hockey English, as we say, with
Right.
like the Finnish guys and coaches. You know, it was very limited.
How was that for fitting in with the team and feeling a part of a part of things?
Um, yeah, it was kind of hard. You can't talk to everybody, or you can't pick up jokes very easily at the beginning, and then, but there is always a French guys on, right? They always stick to NHL teams, and so yeah, it was easy for me like to step in. I think I'm pretty easygoing, and guys enjoy my company, even if I was not laughing at their jokes because I didn't.
Right. So you're with the Kings when you ended up coming over to Mannheim. Was your experience with Killer and Heels any part of your decision-making process of choosing Mannheim? Like how did Mannheim come on your radar, and why?
No, that was a little bit crazy time. I signed 2-year extension with the Kings, and the day after they trade me to Montreal. I was on holiday in France, and I was kind of pissed off at the beginning, and then I realized I had a chance to play for Montreal, and then the lockout came, and my agent was telling me that I signed a contract in Switzerland, but the team wanted me to stay there for the whole year, which wasn't possible, obviously, because the NHL would start at some point.
Yeah.
So I was pretty free, and my agent called me and said that there's a Mannheim wanted to have me on a trial, and I said, trial? No, I'm not going for a trial. He said, well, I'll go there, practice, you'll see, blah blah blah. So that's how I went there. I have no clue who was there, and it was just pure luck that I ended up being with my Manchester boys and you and some great guys there. We had a lot of fun in Mannheim.
That was an awesome year. Yeah. So the day after you signed your deal, they traded you?
Basically, maybe a little bit.
Right.
So,
Close enough.
yeah, I signed an extension 2 years, and I got traded for it was Mathieu Garon for Radam Bonk, and probably me because they needed a goalie instead of Mathieu, and that's
Right.
yeah.
That's crazy. So, because you had 42 games that year. Were you pretty much splitting with Chuck Manick in LA that year, or had you taken over the number one job?
Well, I started the year as number 3. I had a 2-way contract, so they kept me a little bit in the hotel until November 1st, and then they allowed me to stay there. But Chichmanek had an average year. He was outstanding the year before in Philly, and then the LA signed him, and so I played a lot of games to replace him. Also, in those 42 games, there was a lot of those ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was actually a tough year because we had a lot of injuries, and we ended up being a lot of the AHL team back in LA.
Right.
But that was when I said that in Mannheim when we met that I was not really into the league yet. That was the case. I was just trying to hang around and stay in there and belong there and try to compete.
Because you could have arrived in Mannheim, in a lot of different ways. Even though you mentally, you said you were just trying to get your foot in the door, right? Still, or establish yourself. But you came. I mean, you came with that attitude, right? That you were trying to get better. That you weren't there for a holiday. You were there to improve your game and to be competitive. And that's the way it seemed like. Was that a conscious kind of choice for you? That this is not a year I'm taking off. This is a year I need to get better.
Yeah, absolutely. I think get better and take the most out of it. And I'm not a cheater in a way that Mannheim was paying me. I was playing with my teammates and trying to accomplish something in that year. The fans or the city, trying to make the best out of the situation that it's there, and the best was to win it. There's or
Yeah.
and to win it, the best for me was to play great and enjoying the process. Geez, that's the best. Now I'm stopped playing hockey. That's the best feeling in the world. Is that when you practice hard and you play hard and you win a game. You have a pretty good feeling after in the bus, and that's what we had.
Yeah, no, we did.
Yeah.
I've said, I played with Curtis Joseph. I played with, I played with some pretty darn good goalies along the way. And I've always said that year, for a long stretch of time, in my opinion, you were the best goalie that I had played with and had been exposed to. Like, you just seemed to be sharp, like, all the time, though. Like, in games and practices, like, there were long stretches there where you were hard to beat by anybody. Do you remember it like that? Like, I just want you, because you left Mannheim and went to Montreal and had a heck of a season that next year, like a couple really good seasons. Like, do you feel like that was almost like a little bit of a takeoff point for you, like starting in Mannheim there? How do you remember that?
That's a good question. I think I was just a little bit. Also, it goes back to your previous questions that going into the NHL and trying to make it, and then just living in Europe and playing in a less driven area where you can just enjoy yourself and just play games and repeat and play. Where in the NHL there's always the pressure, it can be sent down, other stuff. Now we're trying to play, and when somebody is a little bit relieved in his head, I think he's playing better.
Yeah,
that happened to me in Mannheim for sure. My kid was born in Mannheim, and it was a great period of my time. I had a lot of fun.
yeah.
He's really in a good state of mind. I think you can do great things, and that's a little bit what happened in the year after in Montreal, because I injured my knee at the end of I didn't miss any games with Mannheim because I get injured. I get the surgery after the season, but I missed a lot of games in Montreal, and that time also took the pressure away from me from Montreal, and then I play a little bit more relieved, and I say, well, if it doesn't work out, I'm gonna go back to Switzerland, or I'm gonna do something, or go back to Mannheim, or there's other ways. And when you have a plan B and you play for good reason, I think you play a bit more relaxed, especially goalies. You have to find a little bit peace in yourself.
Right. Yeah, it was really cool to be a part of that. And again to see what happened with you after leaving Mannheim, right? Because that was, and I know I've said it before. I don't really want to beat your drum too much, but it was like, when you were there, I was like, how is this guy not like an NHL starter? Like, it was like, and that was like even me and Delhi were talking about that, Andy Delmore, and there's other guys like, this guy's good. Like, he's really good. And then you left, and then you proved yourself on that stage. You led the league, if I'm correct, in save percentage the 1 year there, and was in the top 5 in goals against. Like, how does that, like, is that something you have on your wall somewhere? Like, that must be a pretty proud thing to be like, the best in your craft for a year there in a couple categories. That's pretty wild.
Thanks, Bud. I didn't thank you before. That's the second time you pumped my wheels. But
that's true.
Thank you very much. I think it was, like, the goalies, they have a prime. I think there is a physical prime and also that mental prime, and I think it came, usually we say 27 for goalies, and well, for me it was 30 probably at that time. But yeah, Montreal was, like I said, I played with no pressure in probably the most pressured city for some reason. The pressure, I felt so good there.
Right.
So I really enjoyed playing for that franchise that meant so much for a lot of people, and especially me in France growing up and seeing that practice that I was talking to you when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, not at all. Actually, I have a lot of fun there.
That's so cool. I mean, but you're kind of talking about it like you're not really sure why. As far as like being in this pressure-packed area in a pressure-packed position, and you feeling like that's the most free you've played. I mean, you have no real reason for that.
I'm actually thinking now when you ask me this. Well, I was injured, like I said. So I walked down Montreal. I watched all the game from the press box, and I always said to myself, "This is so cool. You have to seriously. This was so cool, so special to be part of the Montreal Canadiens organization." I'm not saying anything. I'm really honest with this, and it just means a little bit more than other franchise when you're French, and to see that in perspective when you're injured and see, well, you could also put a lot of pressure on yourself and say, well, when I'm going to be healthy, I'm going to go there. But it wasn't like that. It wasn't like that. And that was human spirit is sometimes a little bit crazy. That when you're well in your head, you go there and you do your best. And I think it's indescribable. You can describe really what's going on in your mind.
You were partners with Jose Theodore, who was an ex-teammate of mine for the World Junior Championships. So I know Jose, well enough to be able to call him a friend and know his personality. There's another guy I really enjoyed, Jose. Like we got along real well. Was that helpful for you, like having him as a partner? I don't know what your relationship was like, but I would assume that tandem type relationship matters, whether you're getting along, whether you're supporting each other, what that relationship was like. Can you speak about Jose and how it was being with the Hart Trophy winner there?
Yeah, well, I was Jose and Yann Denis were there, and I was the other guy. But it was a tough push for that, really, because he had some outside the ring issue, and he was a little bit struggling, and he ended up getting traded that year to Colorado. But I had a great relationship with him. He was a great guy, and he was a superstar in Montreal, big superstar. He handled it very well. He was very nice to everybody. He was a super pro. We crossed a lot of times after this. He was always super nice to me. He was a true leader and a very well respected guy.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, like I said, maybe that was good for me, but he was not his best year that year, and because of mostly outside issues. Homeborn hero, basically. It was really hard to live that experience when you're French, Quebec born in Montreal.
Right.
But everybody was telling me how great he played those years. One of the most outstanding seasons was 2003, I think, where he was Vezina and MVP of the league. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty big accolades there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. They're how I mean, you essentially end up taking his job, like you said, right? He had a struggling year there. You end up kind of stepping in there. How was that for you, not only from a hockey perspective, but within that city, right? To sort of, lack of a better word, dethrone this local superstar, like you said. I mean, how did you feel a difference there once you started playing, starting more games?
I know that I wasn't the next superstar. It wasn't like that. Everybody knew that Carey Price was coming up. We had Jaroslav Halak in the mix. So we were like, they drafted some high talented goalies that are still playing now as we speak with our gray beard on, and it's pretty crazy. But I think the move for them was just to get the distraction away from what happened with Jose and me. I was just a short-term solution probably in the equation, buying time for Carey and to come up basically.
Right. Well, I mean, and then I was looking at the stats. I mean, you have a couple. I mean, a year, I guess we'll say, or 2 years of like really solid numbers. You're playing well, and then Carey Price enters the equation, like you say. So you are in the league with him, splitting games with him as a 20-year-old pro. Was the writing on the wall for you then? Like, were you trying to help him, mentor him? Were you trying to keep on that number one spot, or like how was that for you from a mental aspect, dealing with that, the arrival of Carey Price?
Yeah, I treat my goalies, my tandem, always nice. Like I always had good relationship with them, and we play together. I let the guys, and you can't really win the price. No, but I know that I was a short-term solution. At the end, that trade that to Washington was to make room for him. He was. We had a good relationship. I was really easygoing with him, not trying to be the mentor. We talk. That's usually how I go with the other goalie in my team. We do the goalie talk and try to help each other and support each other. Basic stuff that human beings do for each other. Yeah. And then the coach would do the decision who's playing, and basically that's how we should handle the goalie tandem.
Right. Yeah, you guys almost had the identical stats that year when I was doing the research, like almost identical, like save percentage, goals against, like it was really, really tight, quite close. Did you see at that time how special he was going to be? Like, could you tell that this guy was going to be around for a long time?
Yeah, for sure. He was moving really fast. He was built like he was really strong legs, T-push, really impressive, and his reading the puck was outstanding. So all the quality to greatness, but obviously you never know how it goes. Sometimes the pressure can be off, but he's also very strong mentally. I think he's really, really laid back and putting things in perspective, and nothing fazes him. You have the impression.
Yeah, really, right? That was even at that age. Like, one thing I talk with my son about, who's the goalie, and by no means do I have it figured out, because I've actually played a little goal, and once I retired disco, I got some goalie pads, so I've attempted the position now, and for me, it's like you want to be focused, right? And when you're focused, there's this tendency to want to be like stiff almost, right? Or not stiff, but ready, right? Whereas to be really loose and reactive and quick, you need to be loose, right? So like for me, I find that interesting, because when you're zeroed in and you're dialed in, to still have loose limbs and be able to react is hard, I think, to have that connection. And Carey Price seems to have that. Like, I've heard he's super competitive, yet he seems like he's almost lying on a beach sometimes, right? He's just relaxed in there, and he's I don't know what the right word is, but do you find that, like, am I saying that properly? Like, you need to be kind of relaxed when you're in your stance, not tense?
Yeah, exactly. Intense, but not tense. It's really tricky when you go in and you point out all the solutions and also the problems the goalie have. That you have to be really focused and also not tense. You have to stay loose. Your body needs to be ready to react, but also in a position to react to a lot of things. So
Right.
it's really hard. It's really hard. Yeah.
So how do you practice that? Is that something that you practice in practice, or can you practice that outside of practice?
I think of course one of the first thing you have to do as for minor hockey, I think, is to dissociate the lower body to the upper body. That you're really strong in your legs, but also capable of rotating your upper body and stuff like that. What else? I think all the reaction, the balance, and the stuff like that. That your body is also in quick mode reactions, but still loose. That you keep that mobility possible.
Right.
I'm not an expert of the all this, but my guess would be also this. The tracking, the ball, the reaction with the balls, everything with the balls at a young age is great. I'm involved a little bit with the youth program here in Lausanne, and we try to develop also that they work with the balls, work with the balance, the basic foundation that will not involve in any weights or anything like that. Just to get them into a great foundation for goalie.
So I've told you that we're live here, so we're live on YouTube and on my Facebook channel, and so we've had some people come in saying, they love you, buddy, still my man. A gentleman, Ralph Phillip from Mannheim, came in and said greetings from Mannheim to both of you. But then Kevin Weeks, I don't know if you I'm sure you remember that name. So Weeksy's been watching, and he says excellent, loving it, and so it's awesome that and Weeksy, by the way, I mean, I don't know if you followed his career, but he's an analyst now in the NHL Network, and I think one day soon he's been interviewed now for GM position or a president position a few times, and he's doing some great things with the sport. So awesome that he's tuning in and says hi. So thanks for tuning in there, Weeksy. I want to talk. So you go through this process of kind of replacing Theodore for the moment. Price comes in. They know that he's the heir apparent. He's going to be their guy for the long term. You recognize that, but you're, in my opinion, at the prime of your career. Like, you're playing really good hockey still, and like you said, you're that age where you feel like your physical and your mental is working really well. And you get moved to Washington, and the Alexander Ovechkin Washington Capitals, who had just went through a coaching change. That Boudreau was there. And this team was rolling, but they also needed a goalie, and you stepped in there and blew it out of the water with as far as the win-loss records and your stats. Can you talk about that trade, stepping into that team, that new coach? Like, what was that whole experience like, going from Montreal to Washington?
Well, I was again pretty pissed off to be traded, but a lot of respect for the organization in Montreal, and they handled that very well. And I knew that Gary was the next guy. Bruce Boudreau was our coach in Manchester. Hockey world is like that. And so I ended up going there, and they started to win a little bit in January, but it was nobody was in the stands, and it was pretty poor that season. And they started to win before the trade deadline. Then they get Fedorov, and I'm missing another guy. I'm not gonna have it. And myself, and then we started to win, I think 12 in a row to be in the playoff, something like that.
Right.
It was crazy. Rock the Red, and then the Washington crowd was crazy. And since then, I think he I was gone the year after, but since then, I think it was something happened that year that never went away from Washington until they won that cup a few years ago. But it was great experience.
Well, talk about that though. I mean, so you're in there, right? There's no one in the crowd. They're going on this run, but then you have to be a part of this run, and you're part of the to win 10 in a row. Like that's massive momentum.
I come into that team and there is Willie Cousins, the number one goalie, which I have a lot of respect for him. He was one of my idols growing up. And Brent Johnson, which was a great guy. He's a great friend of mine. He's a great man, and we had a lot of fun during that span. But um, I don't know, just the right time. Bruce Boudreau, he put me in, and we started. We won 12 games like that. I don't know, just. Sergey was a superstar, and I think he's a great mentor for Ovi. It was great moves. I think it was just great moves. Not me, but Sergey and no, but seriously, it was great time for.
I know you're so humble, though. I mean, I think that is humility is a good trait, and I've talked about it before on here. And I think probably in the position of goaltender, it's probably good to have some humility because it's a position that will humble you pretty quickly. I think if you get too big about it, but you do downplay. I mean, every time I brought it up, you've downplayed. I mean, that was a big deal what you accomplished in Montreal. It was a big deal what you accomplished in Washington, and you were definitely a part of the success that they had there, a big part of that success. So I want to at least acknowledge it because I know you won't on your own. So I mean, that was a big deal. How was it being in there and then being exposed to like an Ovechkin, and this is one of the greatest goal scorers of all time, and around Nicholas Backstrom and Sergei Fedorov and all these new faces? Was that I don't know, just speak to those personalities a little bit, like what it was like being around Ovi and practicing with him and seeing him day to day.
Ovi, we didn't practice that much because we were playing a lot of games, and then we went to the playoff run. But obviously, I knew him from before, and he was always hot against Montreal. But he was. I have to use the past, but I think he's still the same. He's just a guy that enjoys playing hockey. Also, as you can see on the ice, he enjoy the game. Plays hard, and Nicholas, helped him a lot. Best scoring players. Nicholas Backstrom is a great also guy. He's a really low key, and overall, not a lot of hockey players I've been disappointed with in any league, and the best ones are also great leaders and great person, and that's why they've been there so long, still playing now, and that's crazy, and still doing well.
And at a high level too, right? I mean, really at a high level. Well, that was one of the guys I thought maybe, I mean, who knows, right? I have no idea. I mean, Ovi shoots the puck like a bullet, right? I mean, he has that big one-timer. I thought maybe, seeing that shot on a daily basis would either drive you nuts or would make you better.
Well, we weren't working too many one-timers when I was there, so that was good. But, practice shot is a bit different than that pass across in power play that he has. But, no, even his wrist shot you were talking about what's tough to read. He has a really tough wrist shot because he can hide it, and his blade is really curvy, so it's really use the flex, and when you use the flex, then it's pretty hard. But we know him. I think we've seen enough of his goal.
Yeah, exactly. No kidding. You were just at the end of your contract there, so I mean, you said you got traded. You're a little bit upset. I mean, that has to be going on, or maybe it's not in the back of your mind, like knowing that you're stepping into a free agent opportunity here. You've been traded. You have this really good run in Washington. How much of that is in your mind? Are you somebody that motivates, or is that something that you'd like not want to think about to have you play your best?
Well, honestly, I wanted to prove Montreal that they made a mistake. Or my ex-team, because that was my goal, that I wanted to prove them that they made a mistake trading me. I was not thinking too much about my next contract at that time. I was free agent for the first time in the NHL, and to be honest, I thought that I would stay in Washington after this. It didn't happen for, I would say, family reason, probably, that I didn't stay there in Washington. But I wasn't thinking about this.
Gotcha. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? So, I mean, so now you have this, you have this great run to the season. You didn't get out of the first round, went to 7 games, hard fought series for sure. I'm sure you would have wished it would have ended differently, right? And went a little further, but now you're a free agent. Did Washington offer you a contract?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it wasn't money related then. It was more about whatever you said, family, quality of life. Was it just something you thought?
It's tough to talk like this. I can talk from others, but I was Chicago offered me one more year and a little bit more money, but I still wanted to stay in Washington myself, and it didn't happen, and obviously at some points it made more sense to go to Chicago, but the basic rule is that you never know what's going to happen in your new team, and when you're well somewhere, stay there. And Chicago is a great city. We won the cup there, but it was pretty tough to change, and it's not that easy to start.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and that's why. I mean, I don't. Obviously, you can be as personal as you want with it, but I mean, I think that's that part of the human side, right? It's not just stopping pucks anymore, right? It's being a part of a team that you feel comfortable with a coach you feel comfortable with. Those things matter, right? And you come into a new environment. You have this contract now that you're arriving with that is something that you've never had before either, right? I mean, you're stepping in and you're supposed to be number 1.
Yeah, we were 2 in the market. And ironically, me and Jose Theodore. Just 2 goals. It never happens like this, free agency. So all the teams that wanted a goalie, they were like fighting for each other. And then it ended up being me hot in Washington. So my price was never the price I get paid. And it was a lot for me to handle, especially like coming from France. And, I was not the big money guy or chasing that in my life, but then all of a sudden I was overwhelmed by all this, and it took me 2-3 months in Chicago to really digest this, and then starting to play all.
Right. Yeah, I believe it. I mean, obviously the check size is way different. Is one thing, but even the responsibility of that, like whether the team was putting it on you or not, right?
It's mostly the responsibility and everything that goes around, and you're not. And I was putting a lot of pressure on myself. Basic rule is that I was. I thought I was supposed to do much more than what I was supposed to do, which is crazy. Just basic stuff is like stop the next shot, and then I wasn't doing that. I tried to do more than that.
Right.
It ended up counterproductive.
Well, no, but I mean, it's such a. I mean, when you're in it, right? When you're in it,
it's like a line. It's really crazy. The goalies are. It's you can be off a little bit mentally, and you're gonna pay for it.
Going to take a short break to remind you where you can follow me. I'm on Instagram at Jason Podolin. Quite often is where I hang out, mostly on social media. I am on Twitter a little bit, but mostly on Instagram. You can also follow my parent group if you're a parent with an athlete on Facebook. That's a group that I engage with personally quite often. It's a private group called Up My Hockey Parent Group. We support each other in there. We share some challenges, celebrate successes. It's also a place where I introduce some of my workshops and some of my teachings when it comes to mindset and character and preparation and some of these other intangibles that I think get overlooked a lot by budding athletes. And it's also a place where parents from all across North America can come together and join a really positive community that celebrates all the great things that hockey has to offer. So Facebook's another great place to follow me. And if you want to get into what I do as far as helping people from a service standpoint, that's where you can go to Up My Hockey. .com. Look under the services section for my signature courses, the Building Championship Character course. I believe character is a skill. It's a valuable skill that is going to make you a better player. It's going to make you more desirable by your coaches and other organizations. It's going to increase your opportunities and your longevity within the sport. And I believe that there's ways to think about character as a hockey player that some of these athletes haven't thought of before. It's a really powerful course. And also my Mindset Master Series. We all know talent is one thing, but without the head on your shoulders to be able to utilize and harness that talent and be able to get through adversity, to be able to handle the relationships required on the way to your goals and dreams, it's absolutely paramount. Mindset is huge. And I am able, from my own personal experience and from the experience of working with others and speaking with others, have been able to craft a few different ways of thinking about mindset and utilizing mindset and applying it in your daily life as an athlete, as well as applying it to your sport that athletes have found really beneficial. So that's where you can find out about me at myhockey.com. And I look forward to those discussions. Please DM me if you have any questions. And now back to the interview with Cristobal Huet. Right. How was that time? You said 2 to 3 months. Like, obviously you had a goalie coach in Chicago. I don't know who it was. There would have been somebody there. Were you talking about that type of stuff, the responsibility of the contract, or were you guys talking more about the technique and the technical aspects? Or do you remember what that was like at the time?
The goalie coach was Stefan Huet. He's now with Montreal Canadiens. But no, Stefan was really helpful and trying to help me through that process. I also had the mental coach. I thought that, but maybe it was too much. It was counterproductive sometimes, and I wasn't that bad. I wasn't that bad, but it was not the way not great.
Right.
As soon as I let go a little bit, it went a lot smoother. And the other goalie with me was Nikolai Habibulin, who was in his last year of his contract. So I was not fully number one. He had a big contract too, and it was like that. It was tough to manage. Our team was also young that year. I think Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews were his first year, and so it was pretty interesting to start like this. But we were in the process to get better, and it was not the best timing to get my mind off when I showed up after that big contract. But he went like this.
Right. Yeah, I mean. It's interesting. I mean, I think we all end up where we're supposed to be, for a lack of a better way to put it. Like, life is life, and we don't do everything perfect in the moment all the time. But whatever happens, and it puts us in another spot, right? And we grow from it, however it works. But we're still able to look back and reflect. It sounds like, you did a lot of learning about yourself in that trip to Chicago. If you could rewind the clock, would you have maybe stayed in Washington? I mean, you have a cup on the. I can see the Stanley Cup there behind you. You mean, like, it wasn't probably how you wanted to win the cup, because you weren't the guy leading the charge there, but you're still a part of something amazing. Yeah, I don't know. Like, do you ever reflect and look on how that might have been different?
I'm not a guy who have regrets because you make decision in the moment that feels it is the right decisions. You weight the good and the bad of every decision, and then you make that decision in that moment. And I made that one, which you can look 10 years after, 20 years after, and might not look the best option. But at that time, that was the best option you had, and I made that one. And also, I had a great time in Chicago. It looks like it was shit. No, it was great in Chicago. We had a great time. It's just my personal hockey side was not my best, and that's the regret I have.
Yeah.
My second year, I played better, and I was okay. But Antti Niemi took over, and I didn't play in the playoff that much. And we won the cup. I was glad that I could help other way and try to be helpful with the other guys. Obviously, like you said, it's not the way I imagine the thing
Yeah.
winning the cup.
Yeah, it's me, and my parallel or comparison isn't even close to the decision you had to make. But I had a similar one in Mannheim when I showed up in Mannheim because I came there for 1 year, and my idea in my head, I mean, I left at 25 from North America, right? Like relatively still young for the guys that would come over, and my idea was to go back, right? I was going to go have a good year in Mannheim. I thought kind of, score some goals, get back to being an offensive player, and then go back and kind of continue my journey to try and be an NHLer. And then Marcus Cool, and I came off to a good start. Marcus Cool offered me 2 more years, right? And that was in November of my first year. So I had like, 2 weeks essentially to decide, is this where my career is probably going to end, right? Is this what is best for me? And yeah, you mean, and I, like you said, you look back, I don't know. You mean, I loved my time in Mannheim, every second of it. I loved being on a team with you. But it did kind of close that door on the NHL, and I'll always sort of have that little bit of could I, should I, what would have happened kind of deal, right? But we make the best we can in the moment, like you said, and you rock and roll with it. What was it when you talk about your experience there and Antti Niemi stepping in and you being a part of a Patrick Kane, Jonathan Toews team there? Like that was obviously a real special group. How does the human Cristobal Huet deal with that? And how do you go from really wanting to be between the pipes to being the best support you can be for that team winning?
Joel Quinn, the answer. One of the best coach I've had. He was not the full best support of me over those years in Chicago, but I have to say he was a great coach. And he just handled it very well with me. He invited me to his office and said, "Well, Cristo, you had the ball. I'm going to give it to Antti. It's yours to take it back. Might be next game, 2 weeks, 3 weeks in the playoff. Who knows?" I said, "Okay, thank you." But I never grabbed the ball back, to be honest, because Antti played great. Could have, but I didn't. But good for us. It means we won. Joel Quenneville, right after the game 6 in Philly, came to me and he thanked me a lot for everything. I was a veteran, I think he appreciated what I did to get the guys going and being a positive guy in the dressing room. And I helped just a little bit, not as much as I wanted, but it was very classy from him. And right after the game. He had other guys to thank, and he came to me, and I appreciate what he did.
Yeah. I mean, not only is that say something about Mr. Quenneville, but I think it also says something to how big of a part you were in it, because that, I don't know. I mean, we've been in a lot of dressing rooms, buddy, and like you get one guy who's not towing the rope and who's negative and gets a little bit toxic, and that can change the whole environment, So that you were able to be supportive and that he wanted to recognize that. I mean, I don't know. It's something that I'm really passionate about on this podcast, talking about the value of being a good teammate. And I think in that scenario, you had to be a good teammate, and that role helped those around you. So, I mean, good for Joel and good for you.
I'm very proud of that. To be honest, I can also teach my kids that I'm very honest and open to that story, because you can always help, and you can be a 4th line or a 13th forward or whatever. You can always help in different ways, and at the end, to win it is very hard.
Yeah.
Any league, anywhere, and it's those small details that makes. But every time, also the coach or your teammates can appreciate the value of that is key. Also, that's how you bound the team. That's how you build a team. Is that mutual respect between the guys that is not playing and the guy who's playing like more harder situation or more situations.
Did you, I mean, I guess the talent of Patrick Kane is kind of speaks for itself. The leadership qualities of someone like Jonathan Toews has been talked about. Could you maybe speak about Taves just with that, like what you saw from him? Because he was a young captain there. What did you see from him at that young age that kind of made him stand out? Was it his approach, or I don't know. I've heard different stories about him, but I'd love to hear what you saw from him there in the locker room, seeing with him every day.
I don't know. He was the only guy I could speak French with because his mom forced him to speak French with me because she's French speaking. But no, he's no. I was just shocked how mature he was at age 20, and everybody's talking about how serious he was and stuff like that. Of course, he was serious about his business, but he was not serious in the dressing room. You know, he's capable of laughing and joking around, but of course, he's a very driven human being, and he's very serious about what he's doing, and that's why he was captain. He was a great captain at age 20. That's
crazy.
Easy to me. At 20, I don't want to say what I was doing.
No, I mean, that's true. And I think I've talked about that in this podcast a little bit. Sometimes I think sometimes these young stars are getting the C too early, and I'm not pretending to know all the young stars, but it's just because you're the best player doesn't mean you should be the captain. But it sounds like Jonathan Toews was ready to be captain at 20.
In this case, yes, he was a good move. Yeah, I agree with you. Also, you can argue that giving a C to a young player, you can help him developing into that leadership skills that it doesn't, or accelerate, I would say, that skills. But for him, I think he was pretty natural. Yeah. Very, very solid foundation, and just a good human being. Also, let's be honest. Like to be a good leader, you also need to be a good human being and treat other with respect, and that's what he did and still does.
When you want to talk a little bit? So after you've won the cup, now Chicago runs into salary cap issues, right? They have these guys, they have a great team, just won the championship, and now they need to figure out how to create room for everybody. And it sounds like, at least from my understanding of how everything went, that you were one of the guys that they felt they could still maintain that goalie level position, because they thought Niemi, had proved himself. He was on a smaller contract. Corey Crawford could maybe come in and support that. And now you're playing in the Swiss A League after winning the cup and signing this contract. Like, how did that all work for you? I guess more emotionally and mentally than anything else, right? Like, how was that, seeing the professional side of the game and being a part of that?
That was clear that with the bonuses of everybody, that our salary cap was really hard. And the next year, so I was the prime target because I didn't play in the playoff. They decided to buy me out, send me to the minors, and I asked them if I could go in Europe. The organization was very classy and said that I could go to Europe, so that's what I did, and I went back to Switzerland. It was hard. Of course, it was very challenging and hard, but I don't know what to say. I always thought that I would go back. Also, a little bit like your experience with, it's tough to say that this was your last game in the NHL, and I had a few chances because I was still playing in the World Championship, where scouts and everybody could see that I was still on the map, but it didn't happen. And I was okay, because after that, in 2012, I was already 37. Let's be honest. I built something great here in Lausanne with the team was in second division. We went up, and now we have a new rink, and it's a great atmosphere here in Lausanne. So when I left, contenders, and so of course it's a sad ending for the NHL, but that's life.
Yeah, and that's like you said, you were a part of something great there, and you were able to still play. Like, my goodness, congratulations on that. To play as long as you did at as high a level as you did, that's pretty impressive too. when you look back on everything now, like if there was a shining moment, whether it's personal or team, however you look back on your playing career, like what's the highlight for you? Where do you feel the warmest on the inside when you think back?
I think the best memories is when you win championship, just because you spend 1 year with the boys fighting for each other and having the same goal, and when at the end it happens, it's the best feeling in the world. And it didn't happen with us in Germany that year, but it was also pretty close in the final. But it was also a great feeling, great accomplishment, because we came from far. But that's what I'm looking for when a team can go as far as possible and have no regret at the end. Obviously, when you win it, it's pretty clear that you went all the way. But that's for me. So it happens for me in my hometown in France, in here in Switzerland, and in the NHL, of course, with the Blackhawks.
Well, that's awesome. I think that's a really I don't know what the right word is, but that says something about you, because I'm sure in the one in Switzerland and the one in your hometown in France, you were a key part of those wins. So that personal excellence also corresponds with the team excellence. Yet you still point out to the Chicago one, where you were a part of something huge there and won a Stanley Cup, or maybe you weren't in the position you wanted to be, but you still remember that fondly. Because some guys might have said, their time in Montreal or something, like the time where you were leading the league in save percentage and like maybe having your own personal success, but it didn't result in team success. So I think that's really recognize that.
If you ask me when did I play my best, I would have said that, but memories are shared with others, no? It's like if you're happy on your corner with your, I think it's you play hockey for that, really.
Yeah, that's it's so true. So true. And even though we didn't win that year, when I look back, and that's the thing, unfortunately for me, never won the championship. I got to the championship final like 3 different times in different leagues, right? And even though wasn't able to hoist the trophy in any of those scenarios, being together with that team and having as much success as you do and battling even in the final, and maybe you're not victorious, like it galvanizes you, right? And it brings you together and it brings you closer. And those relationships, like you said, are so key. And that's what's really special when it's all said and done, right? Me being able to call you and sit here and have this conversation, like that's special. I mean, we wouldn't have had that if we didn't share that time together. And I do think that's one of the best parts about the sport. After you get past the competition side, that whole aspect of being an athlete, like it's the relationships that you're making there that are the real special piece of it, I think.
Absolutely.
One thing for goalies just at the end, and maybe this will be good for them, about you talked about preparation, and you talked about the focus on practice and keeping it fun and wanting to be out there. Can you maybe just talk as a last question about what you did before a game, like as far as like whether it was habitual, whether it was, I don't want to put the words in your mouth, but like, did you do something to get ready for a game, whether it was mentally or physically? Did you have a process that you followed all the time?
Yeah, of course. I tried not to be too superstitious, but I still had a little bit of a plan for preparation. I always, prepare my equipment, my stuff. I would go play soccer with the guys most of the time.
Yeah.
That was a great way for me to stay loose and be part of the team, and they see me out there, and I'm not the goalie. I'm playing with them, and I love playing soccer too, so that's great. And then I would do a stretch where I stay a little bit more deeper in my bubble. I would start to think a bit about the game and do my stretch every part of my bodies, and go from there.
So first part, when I'm talking with the players that I work with, I'm talking about trying to get your mind ready and trying to get your body ready, and you need to worry about both. Because you have to be physically capable, but you also have to be mentally capable. Get your head in whatever space that is for that player to be their best. when you were stretching, you're getting your body ready, but you said this is when you went in your bubble and you started thinking about the game. What would that thinking process be like for you? What are you going through?
It's really hard. I think I'm not thinking too much about the game. Stretching is it's almost like yoga. What I was doing, I'm not yoga, but the way you have to think about your breathing, so your mind is really at ease and relax, and that's what I mean, like preparation. You leave some room for your brain to get some intense and massive focus in that way more. Of course, you can think about who's there, what's coming, is it Ovechkin, is it Jason Perreault coming on the wing there or not?
Right.
But yeah, but things like that and what you have to do. So that's not a long process. I think process is really to be in a good place.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. I like that approach. And again, that's probably different for different people. I'm sure there's some goalies that would say, whenever that would be, whether it's the night before a game or before the game, that they would maybe see the shooters on the other team and what their tendencies were and kind of go through that process. And some people wouldn't even want to think about that. And that would just be confusing for them, right? And make things muddled.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's different for everybody. Everybody has an approach of when they play their best. What's good for them. It could be you need to be a little bit stressed, a little bit high motivation and that kind of spirit. And Carey Price, I'm sure, is more on the lower side of mindset, where he's like really laid back and let the things come to him or something like that. But you have to know yourself. You have to have your GPS and know a little bit where you are and where you want to go, and what do you need to do to go there.
Right. The one last thing that just came to mind, just for my son, actually came to mind, and he's not alone. My son's only 10, so let's be, but he wants to be good, right? And he's having a hard time dealing with when a goal will go in that he maybe thinks. Well, there's two things. Either he doesn't like it when he thinks he made a mistake, of course, and he also doesn't like it when he feels that his team made a mistake in front of him, right? So both of those things rattle him, and he has a hard time turning the page. And now I'm talking about a 10-year-old. You don't have to speak to him maybe specifically, but how did you deal with a goal with either one of those two situations? How would you get that in your rearview mirror so you could just focus on the next shot?
Well, there's two things when you think about a goal like this. Is that first is it means that he's competitive, right? Which you can turn the positive into that is mind process. And if you don't have that, you wouldn't think like that, which is great to have that. It's really hard to get having that competitiveness probably in him. The other thing is that when you blame other, expect to be blamed. If you blame your teammate, and it happens with my son, he was mad, and I said you can't be mad at others, because when you make a mistake, you don't want them to come to you and say, well, you didn't do that.
Right.
It's pretty hard. So, but it's part of the process. And it's very. I think it's kind of natural. You just have to be some points. Funny, maybe. No, but it's pretty normal and pretty healthy like that. I can talk about it. We hate to lose, and it's hard sometimes. But when the more you lose, the more you learn to lose also, and you have to know how to lose. You're not going to win every game.
Yeah.
But you take the good of a game also.
That must have been a bit of that dealing with the goal, right? Or goals, to not think about, because you can't live during a game thinking back, right? There has to be some way to disconnect from that and just really focus in the moment. And I think that sounds like it's a skill that you would get better at, or you could get better at if you were focusing on it as such. Do you remember yourself kind of getting better with that, or finding a way that worked for you, or was it just something you were natural with?
No, I think I think you learn a little bit how to deal with that. But when I was young, I would say if they score on me, blah blah blah, that something could happen bad to your family, or like that kind of that's crazy now. But with the years, you're just competitive. You want to get scored, and that process of um, evaluating your goal, percentage of responsibility or stuff like that, you have to put that on the side right away. Like you have to address it after the game and see after the game as much as possible, because you can't really processing this during the game. You have to leave that on the side and talk to it after.
Yeah. Is self-talk an important thing, do you think, for goaltenders? Like what you say to yourself in the moment with discussions you're having?
That's why we're weird, no? I think you have to talk to yourself. You have a little bit more time to talk to yourself. I wouldn't say talk to yourself, but there is more process in your mind than a player probably. I don't know. You tell me, but I think that's where the mental side comes in. That you have to refocus. Forget about the past, even a good save or a bad save or goal, whatever. You have to forget and be prepared for the next action. And you learn that during by playing a little bit also. But bad experience, good experience, you learn by nature. I want to say a little bit.
Yeah. Well, there's way more time. I mean, I was just thinking as you're speaking there, right? The difference between a player and, I mean, we're on the bench, right? So like there's time for us to think on the bench, but when you're on the bench, you're not involved in any of the outcomes. So it's a little bit different because when you're on the bench, the puck's in the other end. And at any point there could be a turnover or somebody coming down on you. You might not have seen a shot for 10 minutes. And there's conversations that are happening there that just because that's human, like there is something going on there. And I think the messages you guys tell yourself are probably pretty important.
No, but for young kids, when something like this happened, also Tom Erican, my goalie coach in Switzerland, my first goalie coach that I really had, was telling me that when you're a little bit of struggling like this, who's lefty, righty, face off in the offensive zone, look a little bit who's on the ice, the righties. That's an easy way to refocus on and refocus on the life and not thinking too much on before.
Gotcha. You cut out just a little bit there. So you said when there's a face-off on the other end, what did you say? He suggested?
Look who's righty. That's a way of being in the moment.
Right. Yeah. Right. So you're not having the thinking about what if or maybe this. It's just like you're focused on what's happening right now.
A little bit in the past or stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's great. That's a great advice. Well, that's awesome, buddy. We got over our 90 minutes, so I told you we'd keep it to 90, and I lied to you, and I hate to do that. So we'll cut it up. We'll cut her off. But I really enjoyed the conversation. Really appreciate your time. Super grateful for it, and it was awesome to catch up. And I know there's a lot of young goalies out there that are going to appreciate this, and just a lot of ex-fans too. I mean, obviously, the Canadiens have such a long history, right? And people fall in love with the players along the way. And I know there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be curious about your journey and hearing your story. So thanks so much, Disco. We didn't even get to the Disco story, but
just Disco for today, just for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So for those listening, I don't even really know how it happened, to be honest. I think that maybe we were out one night and you were dancing a bit. You know what I mean? It's not like you were. By no means were you a crazy partier, but I think one night you fell in love with the dance floor a little bit, and the next day there was a disco ball hanging in your stall, so we called you Disco for the rest of the year. One of my favorite names. I love Disco. That's so great. Well, buddy, thanks again. I'll let you go. I appreciate it. And we'll just stay online here for a second. I'll shut off the broadcast. And thanks to everyone who watched here. I know you guys enjoyed it. So we were live on Facebook, live on YouTube. It's where you can watch live if you want to ask some questions in the future. And the episode will be released tomorrow as usual. So thanks again, everybody, for tuning in. Cheers. Thanks again for listening today. I hope we all can appreciate the goalie position perhaps a little bit more. This is such a tough spot to be in. And, you know, as a fan, we just watch, right? We watch and we want to see, we expect some saves to be made, and we get excited when there's some big saves being made. Rarely do we actually think about what it takes to make those saves from a mindset side. Like, what is going through that athlete's head? There's so much time to think in that position. There's so much time to be critical and to be obsessive about details, that there's such a balance between being focused, being ready, yet not being over-prepared and tense. And I think that there is always a balance trying to be found there. Cristobal talked about that perfect storm when your physical attributes and your mental attributes are connected, and that's when you're at your prime. And for goalies, oftentimes it doesn't come until their late 20s, which is why very few goalies start at such a young age in the NHL, and for good reason, because there is such a mental component to the position that I believe has greater consequences than it does for regular player positions. It takes a lot to be able to manage that emotional element of the game, to be able to park the negative things that can happen to you, the expectations that can happen to you, to be able to manage your self-talk, and to be able to dive into the preparation in a way that's going to prepare you to be free when you're on the ice. It's a very, very dynamic position, and I think Cristobal was a really good spokesperson for it. You know, you kind of saw from his personality on the interview just how he handles life in general. Pretty easygoing guy who likes to have fun, and he put that at the forefront of our discussion today, is that he really enjoyed to be on the ice. That was the biggest thing with him, and I think oftentimes when we're trying to be great, and that's what this podcast is about, and that's what I do, is, you know, trying to find your personal greatness. There's a seriousness to that statement that sometimes has the passion get lost and the fun get lost. You have to have fun with this sport. You have to enjoy, if you're a goalie out there, robbing guys, stopping pucks, keeping that puck out of the net. This has to be something that you truly get jacked up about. And then from there, we find the personal recipe for your own personal greatness, right? But we can't put the cart before the horse, as they say. And we have to remember that this is supposed to be entertaining, and is supposed to be enjoyable, and is supposed to be something that lights a fire inside of you when you put those skates on and you go out on the ice. So always connect that. I mean, Disco was a total example of that. You know, I spoke of it often in this interview of what an amazing example he was of that in practice, where the environment he created. And goalies, you have such an ability to do this, to create an environment for your teammates that is competitive, that is fun, that is engaging, that gets the most out of the players on the ice. If you bring that attitude that, you know what, no one's stopping me today, this is going to be a fun experience. If I do get scored on, you're going to hear about it, because I'm not going to let it happen again. And you also might get a couple chirps from me if I rob you along the way. It was a remarkable example of what someone who works hard on a daily basis, who has fun while they're doing it, how good that can make them, and how good it can make those around them. So, Cristo, thank you so much for your example. Thanks so much for being an amazing teammate and your time today. And I know that example is one that I'm trying to inspire others to embrace and to use, because it was a personal recipe for you that obviously got you the accolades you deserved, and the contract you deserved, and the Stanley Cup that you deserved, and all the rest of it. So thanks again. Until next time, play hard and keep your head up.